wanted to jump on quickly and discuss a few things. I hope everyone's off to a good start for the new week. I spent most of my morning piecing together the new blog, adding and editing repeatedly. And I mentioned it in my last video, and in the blog, I go into further detail regarding Freddie Galena. It should be completed by tomorrow the latest. Also, I want to thank everyone for posting your questions for the upcoming video. Please keep posting them in the community section for this channel under my last post. This past week, the last defendant in the 2018 murder of James Whitey Bulger has been sentenced. The incident took place at Hazleton Federal Penitentiary in West Virginia. Fotios Geas received 25 years, which will run consecutively with the life sentence he was already serving, which brought to mind another story. Years ago, I was talking with another inmate in Southport Correction Facility. He had just killed someone at another facility and received an additional 25 years to the 75 to life that he was already serving. According to him, when they took him to court, he laughed at the judge and said to him, "Who cares? Run that 25 wild," which means consecutive or back to back. And if you give it some thought, putting appeals aside, which in itself is a long shot, what does a guy with 75 to life or a life sentence really care if they add another 25 years on top of what he's already serving? He don't. Which is why another time we were all locked down because a guy killed another guy over a Short Eyes magazine. For those unfamiliar, it's a pornographic magazine. And I never understood why they used that name because an old-timer, Old Man Mac, who at the time had 31 years in, had told me that years ago they would use that name to describe a pedophile and would say he has a short eyes case, referring to the height of a child's eyes. Old Man Mac was with me at Fishkill and passed away from stomach cancer. Unfortunately, he had no family and was buried in Potter's Field. At the time, I had outside clearance, which meant that I worked on the prison grounds outside the fence. So I volunteered to help bury Mac. I figured at least one person he knew would be there for him. They placed him in a wooden casket that was made out of plywood, and I remember the sergeant that day opened it up and threw in a glass vial, which contained Mac's name, his crime, and naturally the date of death. And then he called Mac a piece of shit. His reasoning was that Mac was in prison for killing 2 cops. And I had words with him that day for saying what he said. Mac was a black guy from Harlem who during his prison time was very close to a lot of Italians and had pictures with everyone. On several occasions, I watched him lecture other young black inmates, telling them to get their education instead of watching and playing basketball. Out of all the guys I met in prison, Mac was not only a gentleman, but the most respectful guy in the system, which I told that sergeant who wouldn't know the first thing about being a gentleman or possessing respect. I'll end with reminding people that the reward for good intentions and actions is being blessed with goodness in our lives. By conducting yourself in the opposite fashion will only bring you misery. Choose wisely.